Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline from She Rises Studios, and I'd like to welcome you all to this special panel discussion as we honor the incredible success of Letters to Him, honoring fathers, grandfathers, and father figures, a heartfelt anthology that's touching readers around the world. This beautiful tribute has become an international bestseller, ranking in over 35 categories across the US, Germany, Italy, and India, from family relationships to motivational self help and memoirs. So join us as we celebrate the voices behind this timeless legacy piece and the men who helped shape their lives. Let's begin. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, ladies. Why don't you each briefly introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining from?
Yeah, I'll go first. My
Yeah.
name is Rhonda Velez. I reside out of Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a mom, a wife, a daughter, which is why this book was so incredibly special to me. And I'm also an author on the She Rises uh, studio platform. So I have a book called When God Says No, Eat Cake that just came out a couple months ago.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Let's go to Sylvia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sylvia Becker-Hill. You might wonder where my accent is from. I'm originally from Germany and live now here in Southern California for 15 years or so. I'm a proud, multiple times best-selling author with She Rises Studios now for the last 1.5 years, and since over 20 years with a few books back in Germany. And when the invitation came here for Letters to Him, my beloved father died in September of 2019. And the book just intuitively, the gorgeous cover spoke to me. I knew in my gut immediately I have to be in it. And writing my chapter, Forgiving My Father, Finding Myself, was the most teary writing process of any chapter before. And it allowed me to grieve my father on an even more conscious and deeper level, because after his death, I was so busy managing the practical aftermath of his death and my sweet, beloved mother's grief, who struggles with dementia, that I was literally too busy to fully grieve. And the book gave me this opportunity, and I'm deeply grateful and love my chapter, the book. And yeah, thank you, She Rises Studios, for this gorgeous, gorgeous project, and just the thought of publishing it also around Father's Day, which we celebrate in different countries in the last few weeks. It was just a brilliant, perfect moment in time, also for the zeitgeist, where so many young people are questioning father figures and the patriarchal old men and their leadership, etc. I thought it's a very important, nearly political book by giving us, mainly daughters, the voice to speak lovingly, respectfully to our fathers and about our fathers, who were not all perfect, as the reader can read throughout our book. So yeah, it's a wonderful book.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you so much for joining, this particular project, and thank you for sharing that. Maybe I can ask Juan that particular side of your story. Why do you think it's important, or what inspired you to join this project as well?
Yeah, my dad and I have always had a really great relationship, but he grew up in a very dysfunctional family. So to me,
Mm,
as a trauma-informed coach, which is what I do, I help women step into their calling and purpose. So many stories that I hear is relationships that they've had with their father that are broken. I was very fortunate to have a wonderful relationship with my dad, but my dad also brought a lot of trauma into our family from his generational trauma
mm,
that he had. He was abandoned as a child. His grandparents raised him, and although his grandparents were wonderful people, they had already raised 9 kids or 10 kids of their own. And so to bring on him and his two sisters was a lot of work. And my dad almost died in an auto accident at the age of 17. He broke every bone in his body and was not supposed to live, and he survived. And he promised that if he did survive, that he was going to change the next generation. And so he really worked hard to build a life for my brother and I that was stable, and that did not come easy. It didn't mean that he did all things perfect, but he really, really did show me that repair can happen in relationships if both parties are ready for that. And if you get curious as to why those cycles are being repeated.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love that, that your past doesn't have to define who you want to be
Mhm.
in your future, right?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Rhonda. Can you both ladies share with us a special memory or a lesson from your father figures, from both of your fathers, that had stayed with you all throughout this years?
Well, I share a bit more the background of my father, which Rhonda, you mentioned the impact of trauma. My father was a child during World War II and got
Mm.
deeply traumatized. And even before the war, sadly, his parents had been traumatized by the First World War. So they were not very kind, loving parents. My father was physically abused by his father, which was also culturally the belief in corporal punishment was part of the culture, a lot, not in all areas of Germany, but in some. So long story short, my father didn't have a lot of support growing up to be a healthy, full, expressed human being. So in contrast to all that, what still amazes me was that his core message and thought, and I feel now tears coming up, even especially leading up to his death. He died when he was 86. The last few times we spoke, and he also struggled with dementia, his meme was, "Life is beautiful." And that touched me so much because it was such a contrast to his childhood, to the Second World War, to his struggles all throughout his life, where some other people might look from outside and say, well, yeah, maybe later it was nice, but a big portion, like the first 25 years, were horrible. So that he, despite all the trauma and the horrible things that happened to him, that he never lost his belief in life and his perspective and perception that life is beautiful. And I just adore him for that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sylvia. Any memories, Rhonda, that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So for Father's Day, I actually posted a picture. My dad is a pastor. He's 78 years old, and he just launched a
Oh,
Spanish church here in Nashville, Tennessee, which is still incredible to me. And there's a picture of him that somebody took, and they bought him a t-shirt that said, "Love like Pastor John." And I think that's the one thing that my dad taught me. My dad ran drug and alcohol rehabs for 25 years and also ran a healing center at one point in his career as well. And he always was able to look at people from a perspective of that they still had purpose in their life, even if they might be down a bad road, but they still had things in them that they were called to. And so it's true. Like, I want to love like my dad. And so I just remember times when, because he was a pastor and, pastors don't always make a lot of money, he had two jobs, and he worked for Round Table Pizza, which was a pizza restaurant in California. And he used to go fix the ovens, and I would beg to go with him because I wanted to be just wanted to be with my dad all the time. And so we would go and he would fix the oven. And then after, we would sit and have these great conversations with those red plastic cups, that they give at the pizza restaurant.
yes.
And we would share pizza. And that's probably one of my fondest memories. And he would share with me these transformation that people had made in their lives, and just really taught me how to love the way that Jesus really loved.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Well, we are actually just, Evelina just joined us. Thank you so much for joining us, Evelina. We were just going around and asking if you have any special memory that, or a lesson that had from your father figure that you honored in this particular book that you wanted to share, that has this particular memory or lesson that had stayed with you all through these years.
Is it my turn to go? I'm sorry, I had
Yes.
technology issues. So
No
hi,
worries.
everybody. I am here now. Yes, I mean, my dad, we always put God first and then family. And he was there for us as often as he could be. He showed up. He was consistent. He was a great example of the qualities, from our Heavenly Father. And so I appreciate and love that, because I do know a lot of people that don't have dads in their lives. And so I realize what a blessing my dad is and has been throughout the years, and is just there anytime we need him and drops everything he does. But a particular memory that comes to mind, one of the younger memories, I think I had talked about this on Tuesday, was just we have a quinceañera in our culture. I'm Mexican American, and it's this coming of age party when you're 15, and it's a great time for the entire family to come together and celebrate. And of course, if you know anything about large Latino families, they love to gather for any occasion to celebrate something. And so this was something that brought the whole family together. But my dad was a huge part of it, like presenting me to the world as a young lady, and the time and effort and how much he worked overtime to make sure that that happened for me, and so that my family could celebrate something like that. But also, he really made it important that we took family trips together. We couldn't necessarily afford to fly, so he made it fun through road trips. And I know those are harder to do now because it's just a lot easier for people to jump on a flight. But we really created so many memories on the road, traveling across the country, visiting family, and making it a history lesson. My dad got drafted the last year when the Vietnam War was ending. And so he just shared, where he was stationed and the things that happened. He worked at the Pentagon for some time. And so he would teach us all these great historical lessons. But while we were traveling as a family, we were learning. And he created that sense of adventure, like in our lives, to always want to learn and to be seeking and wanting more. And I just feel he did so much to change the trajectory of our life. They grew up very poor. My dad had an outhouse all the way up until he was 18. They had cracks in their roof, when they would have to put buckets like for water as it would be pouring in. But the military really changed everything for us. And then he worked at General Motors for some time. And, I just got to see him build like our home. He built and added to our home with his brother, and everything he did was like about faith and hard work and having a good work ethic and just loyalty and honesty to people and just being a good human being. And I just love that about my dad, because that shines in all of the places he's ever taken us and the memories we have for him with him.
That that's wonderful, and it's not, you would really feel it's such a blessing to have your father figure share all of these memories with you. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. On that particular point, when you were writing, and maybe all of you can share, while you were writing your particular part, your letter to your father or your father figure, what emotion came to you? Was it healing, nostalgic, celebratory, or was it something else?
I would say mine was gratefulness. Like, I just felt so grateful that my dad broke generational curses so those didn't continue in our family. And then, he broke those generational curses, and there were still things that needed to break through on my side, which means that my daughters don't have to carry on the generational curses of the previous
Yes,
before. So great. I just being incredibly grateful.
that's wonderful. Thank you.
I definitely say gratitude as well. My dad was a trailblazer in what he was doing. He always, he could have become and done anything, but he sacrificed a lot for his family. He was like the valedictorian of his eighth grade class. He beat out the principal's kid. He could have gotten like an engineering scholarship right out of high school, but his little sister got really sick and he stayed and kind of held it down for the family. And he's the oldest of seven siblings, and he's always been that person everybody can lean on and talk to and things. And I just am so grateful that he chose life differently for us. Even in his walk with Christ, we used to be Catholic when I was younger, and we switched over to Christianity, and just we grew a lot as a family in our faith. And he just, I mean, it took him and my mom together, just a powerhouse to be able to do things that would change our lives like forever and every generation after, just making sure education was really important to us, that our
Mm.
lives were better than the generation before us. And I mean, he took leaps and bounds to get us to where we were at, to live, a pretty comfortable lifestyle. I feel growing up. There was times there was struggle, but we wouldn't even notice because it wasn't talked about in front of us. It would be behind closed doors. But the unity and peace that my parents were able to create in our home, and the openness, they always allowed people to constantly live with us. They would open our home to anyone, feed anyone. And I just love that, their generosity, but gratitude for sure is the feeling that I got while writing this. And just really thankful to God
Mm.
that he handpicked him for us.
Mm.
Yeah.
For me, this was, I think, my 8th or 9th chapter in an anthology in the last 14 months. And over these last 14 months, I have perfected or trained my own writing process. So normally now I write a chapter in around 2 hours, and then I sleep over it and edit it the next day to have fresh eyes on it. But because, as I shared earlier here on this live stream, I realized early on that, wow, this is a triggering in a good way process. It took me over 3 weeks, nearly a full month, because literally after every paragraph or so, because I train myself to first handwrite, especially when it's about storytelling, because when we handwrite, our hand moves over the middle line of our body. We get more deeper access to our emotions and old memories. And I got flooded by memories I haven't remembered or thought about in many years. So it took me nearly a month going through my personal healing process, grieving process. I said I really didn't have given myself the gift of time and pausing after his death, which was just also happening before the lockdown of COVID started, etc. So for me, it was literally a month of a roller coaster, from sweet memories I remembered. I don't want to give it away because, beloved viewer here, I hope you buy our book and read it. I start with just very intimate memories and share stories where some people might say, wow, that's a bit too much information. And so it was a roller coaster, from joy, from gratitude, from over melancholy, over laughter, remembering some ridiculous moments. So it was very intense, the most intense experience with any chapter I have written, because of the focus, the topic, and the state my subconscious mind, my emotional body was in. And in the end, I think let me quickly check, because I have reread the chapter since we published, I think 5 times, and each time I've said something different, another nuance. So in the moment, it is inspiration. What I shared earlier, this contrast, that no matter how horrible life can be, circumstances wise, that we have the power and the choice how we look at it. And my father, who was weak and in a lot of ways, he had the strength to not give up on his chosen view that life is beautiful, no matter what. And that inspires me so much right now, also for my work. I mean, that's just incredible. It reminds me of the book, The Man's Search for Meaning, from Viktor Frankl, who was standing in line at Auschwitz, the concentration camp, on the path to the gas chambers, and who was starving, who was sick, and he was in line with all these people who were scared and in panic and facing their high likely death a few feet meters in front of them. And in his book, he describes the pausing moment where he sees the sunrise and he sees the beauty of the sunrise. And when I reread the chapter I wrote last week, I remembered that, and I felt this kind of human essential thread, which is not about my dad or about Viktor Frankl or you and me. It's that we all have that, this amazing capacity in the middle of the most horrendous pain or fear or pressure, to see the beauty, to see the sunrise.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Um, what do you think is the most powerful gift a father figure can give to any loved one? You know, may the father figure, you know, your of course, Sylvia's father had already passed away. Um, what if there is something that a father figure can give to their daughters, their granddaughters? What gift would that be? What do you think is that great gift that he can leave behind?
I say presence, to be present, because I feel like so often fathers get pulled in a million directions, right? They're trying to provide and they're trying to be the leader and they're trying to do all these things. But I think, I mean, just from talking here with these gals here, the times that we spent with our fathers meant so much to us, more than money, more than, the material things. Like, it was really just being in their presence and being seen and known and loved by your father.
That is true. I mean, I'm sure during Evelina's quinceañera, she received tons of gifts. Probably she doesn't remember those gifts. She remembers the actual event. Isn't that true, Evelina?
Yes, for sure. It is the biggest present is your presence, and I just unconditional love. There's going to be times where things don't go the way you think they should, or there's disagreements, and there's got to be that love and that forgiveness in the process. And at the end of the day, even the biggest mistakes, they're still going to be there. They're still going to love you through it, and they're still going to be like, my dad is like my first love and my hero. And so that's hard. I'm not trying to put him like on a pedestal because everyone's human, but I just am so grateful, just the amount of value he has put on family and making sure our family gathers, and making sure that that even as busy as we get, that there's a reason to have to come together, because it's God and then our family. And making sure when I would wake up, at times I would even see him like praying and reading his Bible and stuff, and that consistency, that presence, that role modeling, like all of that love and that forgiveness is all so important from a father.
Yeah. I hope that a lot of fathers will buy the book, and not just the daughters or women who feel drawn to this sort of quotation mark emotional topic, because I believe fathers can literally learn from our different chapters, because it's very diverse. We are women from around the world with very different cultural and religious and personal beliefs, backgrounds, and these different aspects show different aspects of fatherhood. And I agree with Rhonda, presence. It's a technical term in psychology and therapy, the absent father, which creates all sorts of syndromes in little girls. And then we as mature women are still then going ourselves to therapy or coaching to overcome our own self-sabotage and coping mechanisms, which were created by the fact that the father was absent, either physically not there, or when they were there, they were with their attention, with their mind, with their energy, not really present and there. So Evelina, yes, presence is the biggest gift. And especially from my background with my father, who was sort of aware that he was traumatized by the war, but had no support at the time in Germany. The whole population, no one talked about the impact of the war on the psyche of the whole population and the impact of that. So he never went through therapy, etc. So I believe that a lot of fathers have a lot of pressure, that they believe I have to be perfect for my children. And I want to say to all fathers, hopefully viewing us here and reading our book, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present and talk talk also about your own vulnerabilities and problems, because so many men grew up with the pressure, I have to be the strong one, I have to be the provider, I have to be the breadwinner. And for little girls, or I assume for boys as well, that's not the number one thing we need. Yes, we need to feel safe, but we feel safe through your love and your presence, and not how much money you bring every month home, or what status you have in your career, or any big title. Children don't care about that. As long as we have enough food to fill our bellies and are not cold, that's fine. So that's our expectations or demands as children are much lower. So I think fathers put pressure on themselves for the wrong reason, with the wrong goal, and miss how simple it really is what we children need. Yeah, I mean, there's beautiful books and research out there about attachment theory, and for a child to know that the father loves it, no matter what, no matter the gender. Please, fathers, can you stop making such a difference between boys and girls? We don't want to be only seen for our beauty, or then doubt ourselves if we are not seen, that we are not beautiful enough. We want to be seen as strong as well, and to be able to have any career we want. So I think fathers can make their own jobs easier by looking more for these foundational needs: safety, warmth, being there, loving us, and talking with us more. I mean, I can count the deep conversations I had with my father on one hand. And it's not that I didn't try, but he was just frozen because of his own trauma. And he could not talk about his weakening or fragile, making him feel fragile, horrible experiences. So please, fathers, talk with us.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And yes, go ahead,
I
Rhonda.
was just going to say that vulnerability is so important. You know, I think we grow up in a world where, and like speaking to fathers and we only have daughters, but I know that if one day I have grandsons, I want them to be able to know that like it's okay to cry and it's okay to have emotion, because I feel like so often our fathers weren't able to express those emotions and they had to stuff them. And so, yeah, vulnerability and just honesty and just being able to be real and say, you know, that was hard. Dad was having a hard day. You know, that's so important to let our kids know that.
That's true. That's true. And love, and that's one of the things that I love about this particular book is, although, you know, all of the authors, you ladies have, it's very personal. You wrote your letters to your fathers, for your father figures, but it's not just to honor them, but it's so that we can pass this particular legacy over to our next generation. And so if there's one wisdom that the future father figures out there, what do you think is one wisdom that you'd like for them to take away from reading your stories, your letters to your father figure?
Repair is never too far gone. If you can get honest with yourself. I think asking your kid at some point, what was it like for me to be your father? And be ready for the answer, even if it's not perfect.
That's like that. I love that.
My one goes in a similar direction. Don't wait. Don't wait for the difficult conversation. Because I lived as an immigrant now here for over nearly 20 years in the United States. Every time I left Germany, when I visited my parents with my children, I made sure I left in such a way that, you know, if one of my parents died or I died, that everything which needed to be said was said, or forgiven. That was always a sense of completion, because life is precious and sometimes fragile. We don't know how long we live, no one of us. And I feel like that especially proud men who have this pressure to be perfect or want to heal their own trauma first. No one is ever fully healed. So don't wait till you are fully healed and perfect. You never know how long you have the opportunity to talk with your children. So please don't wait and have the difficult conversations now. Looking backwards, they always turn out not as difficult as we projected them to be. And sometimes a simple "I'm sorry" and a hug is all that is needed to literally heal years or decades of conflicts or animosities or misunderstandings.
That's true. And,
Yes.
you know, it sometimes is difficult, especially I would imagine for the, you know, men in our lives to start the conversation simply because they're often too silent. But I guess you know, you don't have to wait. You can start the particular conversation. Evelina, do you want to share anything?
I just want to say sorry. I'm sorry is very powerful, no matter
Mm,
where anybody is in their journey. Just that open communication. I mean, we talked about presence, we talked about vulnerability, we've talked about, you know, keeping that path of communication open, even as, you know, an adult. Maybe things didn't go exactly the way you had thought or planned. And a lot of times, fathers are even greater grandfathers because they have learned lessons in their parenting and things that maybe they didn't do or didn't take time for. But it's not too late. Today is a gift. Your presence really matters. The male presence in a family home as a father figure, or even if you're honorary father, I just want to say thank you because it does help. And I would say, even like as a person has grown up in that, your mental health and that development, because without them and, you know, having that void, a lot of things happen, searching for not having that male figure like in your life. And so I would just give encouragement to any father out there, even if they think they've messed up. Today's a great day to start. And, you know, as long as you're still living, you still have that opportunity, but don't wait, because we don't know when your last day is. We don't know when anybody's last day here on earth is. You know, the present is a gift, and you should take that and just make the most of it. And today is a great day to start if you feel you haven't done a great job yet. And like I said, sorry will go a long way. And just start with communication and everything will be great. But I know that there is people out there that can still become great fathers. And so don't give up on that dream. Hold on to hope, and, you know, talk to your kids. Talk to your kids.
wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us here, Helene. I know it's
It's
just
Helena, Jack
Oh,
Louis Studio.
Helena, so sorry. Yes, Helena, thank you so much for joining us. So we were just going around, and the question that I asked earlier is if there is any wisdom that the future generation can take from your letter to your father figure, what do you think that wisdom will be?
To keep trusting and to be open to the unknown, because it might be scary, but it also might open infinite possibilities that if we hold back from, we would never have discovered. New lands, new
Mm,
horizons, new possibilities, new lives, and new opportunities. Now it's becoming more accessible and available with transport and the internet, but that doesn't stop us from our own, that doesn't make us any less fearful of our own fears. And if anything, we have now a lot to aspire to on the internet, and that can create expectations of how we should be, how it should be when we get there, or whatever. Whereas before, I guess in a way, when you're sort of going blind, it's kind of exciting and scary, but you just, you know, you just got to sort of like release it all and see what happens. And I think a little bit of that's gone with the way our communications are. And it's you know, we've lost a little bit of that that spontaneity or whatever, you know. It's it's a complicated subject, but I would just say, for anyone, the wisdom would just be to just go for it. If something is calling in your heart, in your soul, you got to go for it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So maybe, to wrap this up, if you can complete this sentence, basically, if your father figure, the one that you're honoring, is here listening to us right now, what would you like to tell him? So maybe you can complete this sentence. To the father figure I honored in my letter, ...
Well, you couldn't have done better, Dad. With all the resources that you had, you were amazing.
Awesome.
I would love to say to make him like sensing, and that's always the key. Sometimes we say things, but if the other person doesn't allow it in and doesn't sense it, they don't land. So I hope if he were still alive, I could convey to him, Dad, I'm so proud to be your daughter.
Oh gosh. That I thank God every day that he chose you as my father, because you are one amazing man who has taught me more than you will ever know.
That's wonderful. Oh my goodness, you guys are going to start tearing me out. Well, do you have any very touching episode here, but any final words that you'd like to share to our viewers who are watching and who are thinking about their father figures in their lives?
I think to the people who haven't had a good relationship with their father, or there is that sting of rejection from somebody who should have loved them, to just know that you are known and seen and loved. And if it's, somebody that steps in, a grandfather, an uncle, a cousin, a mentor, cherish that relationship, and not to give up on the men of this next generation, because I think we can still do some great things with the men that are coming up and taking on the baton from those before.
And I'd like to add, I think it can be difficult to be a man as well, especially in these times, right? And how to be as a man. And I have a son, and yeah, with the whole gender fluidity and, being afraid to even help me in the gym lift up a weight because, right, which is what happened when I was struggling, because we can't do that now. These young guys are saying, we'll get into trouble. And so it's like how to be is can even be in question. Identity is such a big, strong one. And so, yeah, whoever we identify as our main caregivers, in the end, it's not about the gender necessarily. We're just honoring our fathers in this instance. But for other people, they have caregivers who are mothers, with the mothers and their father figure for them. And it's just that honoring in general of having that care and knowing that we've been held and supported and seen and encouraged. And for those of us who haven't been able to have that as a direct bloodline, we can find it in other ways. There are other ways to find it.
Yeah. And I would love to motivate our viewers and hopefully book buyers to really read the book and the whole book, because I know often our friends and family members, they buy the book because they know us, and then they read just our chapter and they already probably know the story because they know us. I want to invite everyone viewing here to not only get the book, but read the whole book, because the diversity and the different angles and stories, the different fathers portrayed. When we want to really understand anyone or anything really deeply, we need what I call multidimensionalize it, to look at it from different perspectives. And I believe that the perception of our own father, or if we are a mother or father reading that book, our perception of our own parenting style might get becomes more conscious or inspired, or we maybe even learn something specific. For me personally, I'm a book nerd. I live here in my home. Wherever I live, I always build literally a big library. One room is dedicated to be a library. I'm very grateful that I could always, even as a broke student, my hallway was a library. I always was able to afford that. And I see so many people saying they don't have time to read. For me, this is like, you have no time to breathe. How do you survive life? So I want to inspire everyone to give this book a chance to inspire and touch you and motivate you, or maybe teach you something. Please read the whole book and not just the one chapter of the person, you know.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, what a powerful celebration of love, legacy, and the father figures who've shaped our stories. To all the incredible authors, thank you for sharing your hearts and honoring these remarkable men with grace and depth. Letters to Him is now available on Amazon in both ebook and paperback, the perfect gift for all occasion. May it be birthdays, anniversaries, memorials, or simply to say thank you in a meaningful, lasting way. So go ahead and grab your copy today. Thanks, everyone. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.